The Chateau Margaux 1947 dripped from Sarah Mitchell's hair like blood, pooling at her steel-toed boots while 300 of Manhattan's elite held their phones high, recording her humiliation. Preston Thornton's laughter cut through the gasps, the 15-year-old's voice cracking with sadistic joy as he held the empty bottle like a trophy. "Know your place, servant," he spat, and the ballroom erupted. Sarah stood motionless, her construction clothes soaked burgundy, watching her $650 million deal dissolve with each drop that hit the marble floor. 25 years. 25 years since she'd sworn never to be anyone's victim again. Then the crash of a silver tray. Sarah's eyes found Dorothy Williams, the elderly housekeeper frozen in the doorway, her face a map of recognition and horror. Time collapsed. The billionaire CEO and the servant locked eyes across the glittering chasm of their shared past. The wine reached Sarah's wedding ring. Decision crystallized. Tonight, everything would burn. Before we continue, please leave a like and let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. Sarah Mitchell had clawed her way from nothing to everything. At 38, she commanded Greenwave Technologies with the same calloused hands that once scrubbed floors for survival. The construction clothes weren't an affectation. She spent every morning on job sites, checking installations personally, earning the respect of workers who saw her as one of them. But beneath the billionaire CEO exterior lived a ghost, the foster child who had once called Dorothy Williams Mama. 2 years had passed since David's car accident left her widowed, raising Emma alone. 8 years old with her father's gentle eyes, Emma now lay dying in Mount Sinai Hospital, her leukemia devouring hope faster than experimental treatments could rebuild it. $50 million. That's what stood between her daughter and death. The Thornton deal would have saved her. Dorothy Williams moved through the Thornton mansion like a shadow made flesh. 65 years old, her once proud shoulders curved from 3 decades of servitude, her joints swollen with arthritis that Richard Thornton's health insurance mysteriously never covered. Every day, she cleaned the rooms where her biological son lived, though Preston never knew the truth. The boy she'd birthed from violence treated her worse than furniture. At least furniture had value in his eyes. She kept 500 letters in a shoebox beneath her narrow bed, each one addressed to Sarah, none ever sent. "My dear girl," they began, "I understand why you left." The latest, written just that morning, said simply, "I saw you on the news yesterday. You looked strong. I'm so proud." Preston Thornton ruled Exeter Academy's lacrosse field with the same cruelty he wielded at home. 15 years of privilege had crystallized into pure entitlement. He collected humiliations like trophies, posting videos of staff members' mishaps for his followers' amusement. Yet beneath the arrogance lived a boy desperately performing for a father who only noticed him when he was cruel enough. Richard Thornton had built an empire on buried bodies, some figurative, one literal. At 52, his appetites had only grown darker, his lawyers more expensive. Victoria, his wife, floated through their marriage in a prescription haze, her former beauty queen smile preserved in Xanax amber. She knew Preston's true parentage, had known for 16 years, and had chosen silence over scandal. The charity gala was Richard's stage, but tonight it would become their coliseum. The December morning bit through Sarah's work jacket as she stood on the Brooklyn construction site, watching her team install the solar panels that would power low-income housing. 7 a.m., and she'd already been there an hour, her breath forming clouds in the pre-dawn darkness. This was her ritual, hands in the dirt before hands on contracts. The workers respected her for it. She wasn't some suit who'd never held a wrench. Her phone shattered the morning peace. Dr. Patel's name on the screen made her stomach drop. "Mrs. Mitchell, Emma's white cell count has crashed. The experimental treatment in Switzerland. It's our last option. We need to move within the week." "How much?" Sarah already knew it would be everything. $50 million. "I'm sorry. I know it's—" "I'll get it." Sarah ended the call, her hand steady despite the earthquake in her chest. The Thornton deal would close tonight. $650 million for a merger that made her sick to consider. But Emma needed that treatment. Pride was a luxury dying children couldn't afford. Across the city, Dorothy Williams knelt on the Italian marble of the Thornton mansion, her arthritis screaming as she polished floors that already gleamed. 3 p.m. The charity gala started in 4 hours. And Victoria Thornton had demanded perfection. Dorothy had delivered it for 30 years, through pain that would have broken someone half her age. Richard's study door stood ajar, unusual. He never left it unlocked. Dorothy approached with her cleaning cart, but voices inside stopped her. "The Mitchell bitch has no idea," Richard's voice carried. "Once she signs tonight, we'll gut her company and leave her with nothing. Poetic justice for trailer trash who forgot her place." Dorothy's hand trembled on her mop handle. Mitchell. Sarah Mitchell. Could it be? The voices faded as Richard left through his private exit. Dorothy entered cautiously, finding his safe inexplicably open. Inside, among stacks of cash and drives labeled with dates, she found a file marked S. Mitchell, Leverage. Her heart stopped. Photos of 13-year-old Sarah at the foster home, police reports, psychiatric evaluations after her suicide attempt, documents Dorothy thought she'd destroyed 25 years ago. "What the hell are you doing?" Preston's voice made her jump. He stood in the doorway, lacrosse gear slung over his shoulder, face twisted with disgust. "I'm cleaning, Mr. Preston." "Your father left the door." "Snooping through Dad's stuff," he advanced, kicking over her water bucket. "On your knees, clean it up." Dorothy's joints protested as she lowered herself, using towels to soak up the spreading water. Preston placed his muddy lacrosse cleat on her hand, pressing down. "You know what you are, Dorothy. Nothing. Less than nothing. The help." He ground his heel harder. "Say it." "I'm the help," Dorothy whispered. Not from submission, but from a pain deeper than physical. This was her son, her blood. Treating her like dirt he'd scrape off those same shoes. Louder. "I'm the help." Victoria watched from the hallway, pupils dilated from her afternoon Xanax cocktail. "Preston, darling, don't exhaust yourself before the gala. You need to be presentable for the partners." Preston removed his foot, leaving Dorothy's hand throbbing. "Clean my shoes too, with your tongue if you have to." He laughed at his own cruelty and walked away. Dorothy remained on the floor, cradling her bruised hand. In 30 years, she'd watched her son grow from the infant she'd held for exactly 1 hour to this creature of casual cruelty. Every milestone she'd witnessed from shadows. Every birthday she'd baked cakes he'd never know came from her hands. Every report card she'd secretly photocopied, treasuring his achievements despite everything. 7 p.m. arrived with a parade of limousines and lies. The ballroom sparkled with 5,000 lights and egos that burned brighter. Dorothy worked the edges, invisible in her black uniform, watching Manhattan's elite perform their wealth like peacocks. Then Sarah walked in, still in her construction gear, steel-toed boots, work pants stained with hydraulic fluid, a flannel shirt over a safety vest. She hadn't even stopped to change. Coming straight from the site. The room's energy shifted, conversations stuttering as heads turned. Sarah Mitchell, the self-made billionaire, dressed like she'd come to fix the plumbing. Dorothy's tray trembled. 25 years collapsed into nothing. Same determined jaw, same fierce eyes. The 5-year-old girl she'd taken in, who'd wake screaming from nightmares, who'd finally called her mama after 6 months of silence, now stood commanding the room through sheer presence. Richard Thornton's smile was a predator's. He approached Sarah with practiced charm, Victoria floating beside him on her pharmaceutical cloud. "Sarah, so authentic of you to come as you are. I believe in transparency. Richard, what you see is what you get." Sarah's voice carried steel beneath silk. "Shall we discuss the final terms?" "All business, as always. But first, let's enjoy the party." "Preston." Richard called his son over. "Meet the famous Sarah Mitchell." Preston sauntered over, his 15-year-old arrogance polished to a shine. He looked Sarah up and down, his lip curling. "This is who you're doing business with, Dad. She looks like the janitor." "Preston," Victoria giggled, her warning lost in narcotic fog. "No, seriously." Preston picked up a bottle of wine from a nearby table. The 1947 Chateau Margaux, $40,000 of liquid history. "We have dress codes at Exeter. Standards. Maybe nobody taught you those in—" He paused, smirking. "Wherever you're from." Sarah stood perfectly still. "I'm from hard work, young man. Something you might learn about someday." The room held its breath. Preston's face flushed red. Nobody spoke to him like that. Nobody dared. "You know what? You're right. You are from hard work." He uncorked the bottle with theatrical flair. "So let me help you look the part." Time slowed to heartbeats. Preston raised the bottle above Sarah's head. Richard didn't move to stop him. Victoria laughed behind manicured fingers. 300 phones rose in unison, sensing viral gold. The wine fell like judgment. $40,000 of burgundy history cascaded over Sarah's head, soaking through her hair, her work clothes, pooling in her steel-toed boots. The room exploded. Gasps, laughter, the violent clicking of cameras. "Know your place, servant," Preston declared to wild applause from his teenage friends. Sarah didn't move. She let the wine drip, let them laugh, let them record. Her eyes found Dorothy in the corner, and the world stopped. Dorothy had dropped her serving tray, silver scattered across marble like broken promises. Their eyes met across 25 years of separation, of survival, of secrets. Dorothy's face crumbled with recognition and something else. Horror at what her son had become, what he'd done to her daughter. Sarah saw it all in that instant. Dorothy's aged face, her swollen hands, the way she stood, favoring her left hip, the uniform that hung on her diminished frame, her foster mother, the woman who'd saved her from the streets, from herself, was here, had been here all along. The wine reached her wedding ring, David's last gift before the accident. Emma's face flashed in her mind, pale, hollow, dying. Sarah walked to the podium, wine still dripping with each step. The microphone whined as she adjusted it. "Ladies and gentlemen," her voice filled the ballroom, "I came here tonight to sign a $650 million partnership with Thornton Industries." She paused, letting them lean in. "That deal is now canceled, permanently." The room erupted. Richard's face went purple. "You can't do that. We have contracts, with exit clauses I'm now exercising." Sarah's voice never wavered. "I don't do business with people who lack basic human decency." Preston, emboldened by adrenaline and audience, spat at her feet. "You'll regret this. My father will destroy you." Sarah stepped down from the podium, her footsteps squelching in wine-soaked boots. As she passed Dorothy, the older woman pressed something into her hand, a hotel key card with a room number written on it. Their fingers touched for just a moment, 25 years of absence condensed into a second of contact. Sarah left them with their laughter dying in their throats, their cameras still rolling, their champagne turned bitter. She walked into the December night, wine freezing in her hair, carrying the weight of what she'd sacrificed and what she'd found. Behind her, Dorothy began cleaning up the wine, the same as she'd cleaned everything else for 30 years. But tonight was different. Tonight, the ending had finally begun. The Marriott's hallway stretched before Sarah like a passage through time. 11:30 p.m., and she'd sat in her car for an hour, wine-stained clothes dried stiff, debating whether to walk through that door, room 247. Dorothy's handwriting hadn't changed, still the careful cursive that once wrote, "Great job" on kindergarten homework a lifetime ago. Sarah knocked twice. The door opened immediately, as if Dorothy had been standing behind it, waiting. They stood frozen, two women separated by 25 years and 3 feet of carpeted threshold. Dorothy looked older, smaller, but her eyes, those warm brown eyes that had once been Sarah's whole world, remained unchanged. "My baby girl," Dorothy whispered, and Sarah broke. She collapsed into Dorothy's arms. 38 years old and sobbing like the 5-year-old who'd first arrived at Dorothy's door. Feral and terrified. Dorothy held her wine-stained clothes and all, rocking slightly the way she used to when nightmares woke the house. "I'm sorry, Mama Dot. I'm so sorry I left. I'm sorry I never called. I'm sorry." "Shh, baby. You survived. That's all I ever wanted." Dorothy guided her inside, where 2 beds sat untouched and a cardboard box waited on the table between them. Sarah saw the box and knew. "My letters, 503. Dorothy's voice carried no accusation, only fact. "1 for every month you've been gone, plus extras for your birthdays, your wedding, Emma's birth." Sarah's hands shook as she opened the box. The first letter was dated barely a week after she'd left for college, cutting all ties. "My dearest Sarah, I hope this finds you well. I understand why you had to go. This world is cruel to girls like us, and you needed to become someone they couldn't hurt. I'm so proud of you for choosing yourself." Another, dated years later. "I saw you on the news today. Forbes' youngest female CEO. You wore the blue suit I always said brought out your eyes. I cried happy tears." Sarah found one marked with Emma's birth date. "I became a grandmother today. The news said 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. I pray she has your strength and better luck with it. You followed everything." Sarah's voice broke. "Every article, every announcement, every moment I could find." Dorothy pulled out a photo album, newspaper clippings, magazine covers, printed screenshots. Sarah's entire life meticulously documented by the mother she'd abandoned. "Your wedding day." Dorothy pointed to a photo clearly taken from a distance. "I stood across the street. You were so beautiful in your grandmother's dress." "Yes. I remembered you telling me about it when you were 7. Sarah traced the photo with trembling fingers. "I looked for you. In the church. I actually turned around, hoping somehow. I know, baby. I saw you looking." They sat in silence, years of absence heavy between them, until Dorothy spoke again. "Sarah, there's something you need to know. About Preston." Sarah's body tensed. "The boy who... He's my son." The words fell like stones into still water. "And your brother." The room tilted. Sarah gripped the table. "What?" Dorothy's face aged another decade in seconds. 16 years ago. Richard Thornton. He forced himself on me. Multiple times. I got pregnant. Victoria knew. She made sure I understood that reporting it would mean deportation of my cousins, loss of everything. So I stayed quiet. Had the baby. They took him immediately, raised him as theirs. Dorothy! No. God! No! Sarah reached for her foster mother's hands, finding them scarred and swollen. That monster. And Preston doesn't know. How could I tell him he's been raised to hate everything I am? Tonight, before the gala, he stood on my hand while I cleaned his footprints. My own son. Tears ran down Dorothy's weathered cheeks. I've watched him become cruel, racist, everything I fought against, but he's still my baby. I held him for 1 hour after birth, and I've loved him every second since. Sarah's mind reeled. The boy who'd humiliated her, who'd poured wine over her head with such casual cruelty, he was family. Her brother, Dorothy's son. There's more, Dorothy said, pulling out a larger box from under the bed. 30 years of evidence. Everything Richard Thornton has done. The box contained horror systematically documented, tax records showing hundreds of millions in evasion, photos of bruised women, each with detailed notes of dates, times, payments for silence, charity fund records with clear embezzlement trails, and at the bottom, wrapped in plastic, a hard drive labeled Tony Martinez, 1995. The union leader who disappeared. Sarah knew the case. Everyone in construction did. Dorothy nodded. Richard killed him. I have the recording. He was drunk, bragging to his lawyer. Didn't know I was in the next room cleaning. Tony's body is in the foundation of the Thornton Tower. Literally built his empire on a dead man. Sarah stared at the evidence. This could destroy them all. But it would destroy Preston too. He'd be the son of a rapist and murderer. The media would crucify him. Dorothy's voice cracked. He's cruel now, but he's 15, still young enough to change, to learn better. If this comes out, he'll be destroyed, Sarah finished. The weight of it settled on her shoulders. Justice versus family. Truth versus mercy. And there's Emma, Sarah said quietly. She's dying. Dorothy. Leukemia. There's a treatment in Switzerland. $50 million. I was going to use the Thornton deal money. Without it. She couldn't finish. Dorothy gripped her hands tighter. My granddaughter is sick. She has maybe weeks. The doctors say this treatment is her only chance. But I can't liquidate assets fast enough. I've mortgaged everything, sold everything. I'm still 30 million short. They sat with the impossible choice between them. Expose Richard and destroy Preston, or stay silent and watch Emma die. We could use this as leverage, Dorothy suggested quietly. Force Richard to pay for Emma's treatment. That's blackmail. We'd become him. Then what do we do? Sarah looked at the woman who'd raised her, who'd endured rape and degradation in silence to protect a son who despised her. We find another way. We have to. There's always another way. Dorothy pulled out one more item, a USB drive. Security footage from the mansion. Every instance of abuse, every crime discussed, every visitor who shouldn't have been there. 20 years worth. How? I learned computers, late nights, online courses, because I knew someday I'd need proof. Dorothy's smile was sad, but proud. You weren't the only one who could reinvent herself. 1 a.m. passed as they strategized, mother and daughter reunited in crisis. Sarah's phone buzzed constantly. Board members, reporters, Richard's threats. She ignored them all. I have a plan, Sarah finally said. We don't release it all. We release just enough to start an investigation. Let the FBI find the rest. Preston doesn't have to be collateral damage if we're smart about this. But Emma's treatment, I'll find another way. I'll sell Greenwave if I have to. But not to him. Never to him. Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. You've grown into someone remarkable. Someone good. I learned from the best, Mama Dot. The nickname broke them both. 25 years of separation crumbled as they held each other, crying for lost time and found connection. 2 a.m. approached when Sarah finally stood to leave. Come with me. Leave that house. You don't have to serve them anymore. Not yet. Preston. He's still my son. I can't leave him there alone with them, not when everything's about to fall apart. He'll need someone, even if he doesn't know it's his mother. Sarah understood. The same love that made Dorothy endure 30 years of hell would keep her there through the coming storm. We'll protect him, Sarah promised. Both of us. He's family, even if he doesn't know it. Family, Dorothy repeated, tasting the word like communion wine. Yes, we're family. All of us. Even the broken parts. As Sarah left, Dorothy called after her. That blue suit. For your first Forbes cover, I bought it. Had it delivered anonymously. I wanted you to have something beautiful from your mother, even if you couldn't know it. Sarah stopped, hand on the door. I knew. Somehow. I always knew it was you. It's the only suit I kept. She left Dorothy standing in the doorway. Two women preparing for war with weapons of truth and love. Their reconciliation a quiet revolution in a world built on lies. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, for these few hours, a mother and daughter had found their way back to each other. The wine stain on Sarah's clothes had dried to the color of old blood, but she wore it like armor now. She'd been humiliated, yes, but she'd found something worth more than any deal. She'd found her way home. December 22nd arrived with the violence of viral fame. Sarah woke to 47 missed calls, her phone vibrating itself off the nightstand. The video had exploded overnight. Hashtag Winegate CEO trending globally. 50 million views and climbing. Every angle, every drop of wine, every second of her humiliation played on infinite loop across the internet. Turn it off. Sarah stood in the doorway of Emma's hospital room, but too late. Her daughter's iPad glowed with the frozen image of Sarah dripping in wine. Preston's sneering face beside her. "Mommy." Emma's pale face crumpled. "Why did that boy hurt you?" Sarah gathered her daughter carefully, mindful of the IV lines. "Sometimes people are mean, baby, but we don't let meanness win." "He made you cry." "No, sweetheart, I'm not crying." But Sarah was, silently, into Emma's thinning hair. The experimental treatment in Switzerland felt like a vanishing dream. Her phone rang. Board meeting. Emergency. Now. The Green Wave boardroom had the atmosphere of a funeral. Stock price charts covered every screen, red lines plummeting like cliff divers, 30% value gone overnight. "You have to apologize." Chairman Roberts didn't preamble. "Publicly. Take responsibility for the misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. Sarah's voice could have cut glass. "A child assaulted me with wine while his parents laughed. You provoked them by showing up dressed like that, to a formal gala. I came from a job site, actually working. Sarah, be reasonable. The Thornton partnership is worth $650 million. Your daughter needs treatment. Swallow your pride and apologize." The room waited. 12 board members who'd never missed a meal, let alone been humiliated for their clothes. Sarah thought of Emma, of Dorothy, of the evidence in that hotel room. "No. Then we'll have to discuss your position as CEO." "Discuss away. I built this company with my bare hands while you all played golf. Fire me and watch it crumble." Sarah walked out, leaving them with their charts and their cowardice. Across the city, Preston Thornton had become Exeter Academy's newest legend. The cafeteria erupted when he entered, teammates pounding his back, girls suddenly interested. He'd done what they all dreamed of, put someone beneath them in their place. "Dude, that was fucking legendary." Brad Morrison, lacrosse captain, pulled up the video on his phone. "Look, I made it my screensaver." Preston grinned, but something felt off, like wearing a shirt that didn't quite fit. "Hey, Preston." Marcus Williams, his lab partner and only black student in their grade, stood at their usual table. "That was messed up, man." "What?" "Come on, Marcus." She was asking for it, dressed like trash at a formal event. She was dressed like a worker, like my dad dresses. That make him trash too. The cafeteria quieted, sensing conflict. Preston's face reddened. "That's different." "How?" "It just is." Marcus gathered his lunch. "My grandmother works as a cleaner, raised 6 kids cleaning offices at night. Maybe you should think about who you're really insulting when you pour wine on working people." He left Preston sitting alone at their table, appetite gone. Lacrosse practice was worse. Coach Bennett, a former Marine who valued discipline above breeding, called Preston into his office. "You're benched for the rest of the season." "What, coach? You can't." "I can, and I am." "You assaulted a woman, on video. That's not how Exeter men behave." "My father will." "Your father can buy you many things, Thornton, but he can't buy you character." Benched. End of discussion. Preston stormed home, finding the mansion in chaos. FBI agents carried boxes from his father's study. Richard stood in the foyer, his lawyer beside him, face purple with rage. This is harassment. I'll sue every one of you. Mr. Thornton, we have a warrant. Someone sent us substantial evidence of financial crimes. Who sent it? The agent smiled coldly. Anonymous tip. Very thorough. Almost like someone's been documenting everything for years. Preston watched his father's face cycle through emotions. Rage, fear, calculation. For the first time, Richard looked vulnerable. Later, Preston found Dorothy in the laundry room, struggling with a heavy basket. Her hand was still bruised from where he'd stood on it yesterday. Without thinking, he reached for the basket. "Let me get that." Dorothy froze. In 15 years, Preston had never offered to help, never shown kindness. She looked at him like he'd grown a second head. "It's fine, Mr. Preston. This is my job." "Your hands hurt." He took the basket, surprised by its weight. How did she carry these all day with arthritis? They stood awkwardly, servant and son, neither knowing how to navigate this unexpected moment. "The woman last night," Preston said suddenly. "Sarah Mitchell. Dad says she grew up in foster care." Dorothy's breath caught. "Does that matter?" "I don't know. Maybe. Marcus said things today made me think." "Thinking is good. Mr. Preston?" "My name's just Preston. The Mr. thing is weird." Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. "Preston, then—" He carried the basket upstairs, Dorothy following in shock. In the hallway, Victoria floated past in a Xanax haze, laughing at something only she could see. "Mom's getting worse," Preston said quietly. "Addiction is a disease." Dorothy replied carefully. "Is that why you don't judge her, even though she treats you like dirt?" Dorothy was quiet for so long, Preston thought she wouldn't answer. "Everyone has their pain. Preston, some people medicate it, some people spread it. But underneath, we're all just hurt children trying to survive." That night, Preston couldn't sleep. He Googled Sarah Mitchell, reading past the CEO headlines to earlier articles. Foster kid, suicide attempt at 12, full scholarship to MIT, started her company in a garage, every achievement earned, nothing given. Then he found an old photo, teenage Sarah at a science fair, wearing an ill-fitting dress that was clearly handmade. Her smile was fierce, proud. She'd won first place. She looked like Dorothy when she smiled. Preston shook the thought away, but it lingered like morning frost. December 23rd brought escalation. Richard Thornton held a press conference from his lawyer's office, the FBI having raided his company headquarters. Sarah Mitchell is a bitter, unstable woman who's using her foster child sob story to destroy legitimate business. I have documents proving she's mentally unfit, suicide attempts, psychiatric holds, a history of violence. He held up folders, each one a violation of privacy laws he was confident his lawyers could navigate. "She was my housekeeper's charity case 25 years ago. Yes, Dorothy Williams took in the troubled girl, tried to help her. But you can't polish trash. Now she's trying to destroy my family out of jealousy." The reporters ate it up. Dorothy, watching from the kitchen, gripped the counter until her knuckles went white. Sarah's teenage psychiatric records, sealed by law, splashed across every tabloid by lunch. Sarah sat in the hospital chapel, holding Emma's hand while machines beeped their electronic prayers. Her phone buzzed with board members' resignations, investors pulling out, everything she'd built crumbling. "Mommy, are you sad?" Emma's voice was weaker today. "No, baby. Just thinking. About the mean boy. About choices. About what matters. I matter, right? More than anything in the world." Dr. Patel entered quietly. "Mrs. Mitchell, I need to speak with you." In the hallway, his face said everything. "We have days, maybe a week, without the Swiss treatment." "I'll get the money." "How I'm sorry, but how—" Sarah didn't answer because she didn't know. She'd sell her soul if she had one left to mortgage. That evening, she visited David's grave. The cemetery was empty except for shadows and frost. She knelt by the headstone, fingers tracing his name. Tell me what to do. Our baby's dying and I'm out of options. Do I take Richard's money? Do I become the monster to save her? You're Sarah Mitchell. She spun around. Preston stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, looking younger than 15 in the dying light. How did you? I followed you. I've been researching you. You're Dorothy's foster kid, the one she talks about in her sleep. Sarah's heart stopped. She talks in her sleep. When she naps in the laundry room, she says, Sarah, my baby, come home. I thought she was confused. But it's you. They stood facing each other, sister and brother who didn't know it, divided by everything and connected by blood. My dad says you're some gold digger trying to destroy us. Your dad is a monster. I know. The admission shocked them both. I mean, I'm starting to see it. The FBI agents. The things they're finding. Mom's pills. The way he treats Dorothy. Preston's voice cracked. Did you know she has a PhD, Dorothy, in literature? From Haiti. She came here with nothing, and they treat her like she's nothing. She's everything, Sarah said fiercely. She saved my life. Literally. I'd be dead without her. Why did you leave her then? The question hung between them like a blade. Because I was a coward. Because I thought I needed to erase my past to have a future. Because I was 18 and stupid and scared. Preston approached David's headstone. Your husband. 2 years ago. Car accident. Emma barely remembers him. Emma's dying. How did you? I heard Dad talking. He said once you lose your daughter, you'll sell him the company for pennies. Sarah's rage was quiet. Cold. He's counting on my child's death. He's a monster. You said it yourself. Preston met her eyes. I'm sorry. About the wine. About everything. I don't even know who I am anymore. You're 15. You're supposed to be figuring it out. I feel like everything I know is a lie. My whole life. Built on lies. If only he knew. Sarah thought. If only he knew the truth Dorothy carried. There's still time, she said carefully. To become someone better. Dorothy said something similar. Dorothy's wise. Listen to her. Preston nodded slowly. There's something else. Dad has a safe in his study. Behind the Monet. The combination is my birthday. 03, 15, 09. There might be things in there. Things that could help you. Sarah studied this boy. This brother she couldn't claim. Why would you tell me that? Because maybe I don't want to be him anymore. Maybe I want to be... He paused, looking at David's headstone. Someone a daughter wouldn't be ashamed of. He walked away before Sarah could respond, leaving her alone with the dead and the dying light. December 24th, Christmas Eve morning, 6 a.m. Preston woke to find an envelope under his door. His name written in Dorothy's careful script. Inside, a single page that destroyed his world. My beloved son, I have carried this truth for 15 years, but tonight God tells me it's time. You are my biological child, born from violence but raised in privilege. Richard Thornton forced himself on me when I was 50, alone, vulnerable. You were the result. I have loved you every second of your life, even when you stood on my hand, even when you called me names that broke my heart. You are not his sins. You are my miracle, my heartbreak, my precious boy. I stayed to watch you grow, to be near you, to love you even if you could never love me back. But you're becoming him, and that's killing me faster than his violence ever could. You have a choice now. Become the man he taught you to be, or become the man I know you can be. Sarah Mitchell is your sister in all but blood. I raised her too. The family you mocked and humiliated is your true family. Choose, my son. Choose who you are. Forever your mother. Dorothy Williams. Preston read it 3 times before running to the bathroom to vomit. Then he stormed into his parents' bedroom, where Victoria lay in her prescription fog and Richard dressed for another lawyer meeting. "Is Dorothy Williams my biological mother?" The question landed like a grenade. Richard's face went white, then red. Victoria laughed, high and manic. "Don't be ridiculous. Is she?" Victoria sat up, pupils dilated, truth spilling out like wine. "Of course she is, darling. Your father likes his women ethnic and unwilling. Dorothy just happened to be fertile." Richard slapped Victoria hard enough to knock her back into the pillows. Then he turned on Preston. "You are my son. Mine. I raised you. I made you. I own you. You raped her. I took what I wanted, like I taught you to take what you want. That's what men like us do." "Men like us?" Preston backed toward the door. "I'm nothing like you. I'm her son. Dorothy's son. You're a Thornton." "No," Preston said quietly, finally understanding everything. "I'm Dorothy Williams's son, and Sarah Mitchell's brother, and I'm going to help them destroy you." He ran from the room, Richard's threats echoing behind him, Victoria's drugged laughter chasing him down the stairs. He found Dorothy in the kitchen, preparing breakfast as she had every morning for 30 years. "Mom," he said. The word foreign but right. Dorothy dropped the pan, eggs splattering across the floor. They stood frozen, son and mother, seeing each other truly for the first time. "You know," she whispered. "I know everything. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She crossed the kitchen and pulled him into her arms, and Preston Thornton died in his place. Preston Williams was born, sobbing into his mother's shoulder. Finally home. The Westchester Country Club stood like a fortress of privilege against the December sky, its oak-paneled walls holding 3 generations of secrets. Noon on Christmas Eve, and Richard Thornton held court in the main dining room, surrounded by his attorneys and allies, spinning damage control into gold. The FBI raids were misunderstandings. The accusations were jealous lies. And Sarah Mitchell was a disturbed woman with a documented history of mental illness. Preston walked through those doors carrying DNA test results and the weight of truth. The room fell silent as he approached his father's table. Richard's face shifted from annoyance to concern. Preston's eyes were red-rimmed, his usual arrogant posture replaced by something raw and dangerous. "Son, you're late for lunch. Am I your son?" Preston's voice carried across the dining room. "Or am I Dorothy Williams's son?" The silence that followed was absolute. Forks suspended midway to mouths, champagne glasses frozen in air, 100 witnesses to the unraveling of the Thornton dynasty. Richard stood slowly, his smile never wavering. "Preston, you're confused. Obviously the stress." Preston slammed the DNA test results on the table, rattling the crystal. 99.9% probability. Dorothy Williams is my biological mother, which means you raped her. Gasps rippled through the room like waves. Phone cameras emerged from pockets and purses. Richard's carefully constructed world began its public demolition. "This is ridiculous. You're having a breakdown." "Am I?" Preston pulled out his phone, thumbing to a recording. Victoria's drugged voice filled the room. "Of course, Dorothy is his mother. Richard likes his women ethnic and unwilling. Bis ditchis." The recording continued, Victoria's confession sprawling into details that made several ladies reach for their pearls. Richard lunged for the phone, but Preston stepped back, letting it play. "Turn it off!" Richard's mask finally slipped, revealing the monster beneath. "Why isn't this what you taught me? Take what we want. Dominate the weak." Preston's voice broke. "You made me torture my own mother for 15 years. Richard's counterattack came swift and vicious. 1 p.m., and he'd rallied, his lawyers flanking him like soldiers. "Ladies and gentlemen, my son is clearly having a mental health crisis. This DNA test is fabricated. Dorothy Williams is a manipulative immigrant who's poisoned my son's mind, working with Sarah Mitchell to extort our family. He produced his own documents, forged, but convincing. Dorothy Williams has been stealing from our household for years. Here are the records. She's created this elaborate lie to avoid prosecution, using my troubled son as a pawn. Some in the crowd murmured agreement. After all, Richard Thornton had been one of them for decades. Dorothy was just the help. She's a criminal, Richard continued, warming to his theme. She seduced me 20 years ago, trying to trap me with a child. When that failed, she's waited all this time for revenge. Classic immigrant gold digger behavior. The room's sympathy began tilting back toward Richard. These people understood affairs, even assault. But they couldn't fathom one of their own being wholly evil. There had to be another explanation, one that didn't shatter their worldview. Preston stood alone in the center of the room, watching his father work the crowd, and for a moment, the old Preston surfaced. It would be so easy to accept this version, to remain a Thornton, to keep his privilege intact. Then the doors opened. Dorothy Williams entered the Westchester Country Club for the first time in 30 years of living 10 minutes away. She wore her Sunday best, a navy dress she'd saved 3 months to buy, low heels that didn't quite hide her limp, and a dignity that outshone every diamond in the room. The crowd parted instinctively. This was her moment, her courtroom, and everyone somehow knew it. "Mr. Thornton is right about one thing." Dorothy's voice was steady, carrying the weight of 3 decades of silence. "I have been stealing." Richard smirked, vindicated. "I've been stealing moments." Dorothy continued. "Stealing glimpses of my son growing up, stealing pride in his achievements, even as he spat on me. Stealing love for a child who was taken from me the hour he was born." She reached into her purse, pulling out a manila envelope worn soft with handling. "March 15th, 2009, the day Preston was born. I held him for exactly 1 hour before Victoria Thornton took him from my arms. I have the hospital records here, the ones showing I gave birth, the ones showing my injuries from the assault 9 months prior." She pulled out photograph after photograph, laying them on Richard's table like tarot cards revealing his future. "These are the medical records from my rape examination. December 23rd, 2008. The police report I filed that was mysteriously lost. The threats from your lawyers if I pursued charges." The room had gone tomb silent. Even the waitstaff stood frozen, witnessing history. "For 30 years, I've cleaned your homes, raised your children, kept your secrets." Dorothy addressed the entire room now. "I've watched you cheat on each other, lie to each other, destroy each other, all while calling me the help. But I'm a mother, and a mother endures anything for her child." Her eyes found Preston. "Even watching him become cruel, even letting him stand on my arthritic hands, even being called names that stripped my humanity, because I knew someday, somehow, the truth would set us both free." Preston crossed the room to stand beside her, publicly, deliberately choosing his side. "This is my mother, Dorothy Williams, Ph.D. in literature from the University of Haiti, speaker of 4 languages, survivor of more than any of you could imagine, and I'm proud to be her son." Richard's face had gone beyond purple to a dangerous white. "You're no son of mine." "Finally, something we agree on," Preston replied. 3 p.m. marked the moment everything shifted. Preston looked between Richard and Dorothy, between the life of privilege built on lies and the truth that would cost him everything. The room held its breath, waiting to see which way the Thornton heir would fall. "I remember," Preston said suddenly, his voice young and wondering. "When I was 2, maybe 3, I pulled a pot of boiling water off the stove. Someone grabbed me, threw themselves between me and the water. They got burned instead." He turned to Dorothy, whose eyes had filled with tears. "It was you. These scars on your arms, they're from saving me." Dorothy nodded silently. "And when I was 7, terrified of thunderstorms. Someone would sing outside my door during storms. A Haitian lullaby. That was you, too. Ti petit moine, Dorothy whispered. My little one. You were always there, always protecting me, and Preston's voice shattered. I called you garbage. I threw food at you. I stood on your hands. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He dropped to his knees in front of his mother, in front of everyone. Preston Thornton on his knees before the black woman who cleaned his toilets. Please forgive me. Dorothy knelt too, gathering her son into her arms. You were never the one who needed forgiveness, my love. You were just a child, taught to hate, but you're choosing love now. That's all that matters. 4 p.m. brought Sarah Mitchell through those same doors, and the triangle was complete. She took in the scene, Dorothy and Preston embracing, Richard cornered, the crowd transfixed, and made her decision. I'm here to accept Richard Thornton's offer, she announced. The room turned to her in shock, Richard's face lit with triumph. I'll sell Greenwave Technologies to Thornton Industries for $100 million, enough to save my daughter's life. Sarah, no. Dorothy stood, pulling away from Preston. Not for them. Never for them. For Emma. Mama Dot. For family. Sarah's eyes met Dorothy's, conveying everything she couldn't say aloud. Trust me. Richard practically ran to his lawyers, who produced contracts with suspicious speed. As Sarah signed, Preston watched with growing understanding. His sister, because that's what she was, truly, was sacrificing everything she'd built to save her daughter. No, Preston said suddenly. I won't let you do this. He turned to the room, to the cameras still recording, to the witnesses who'd remember this Christmas Eve forever. I'm renouncing my inheritance. Every penny. It's blood money, built on assault and murder. Murder. Someone gasped. Tell them about Tony Martinez, Dad. Tell them about the union leader buried in the foundation of Thornton Tower. Richard's lawyers tried to silence Preston, but he continued, unstoppable now. I'm signing over my entire trust fund, all $200 million, to Emma Mitchell for her treatment. It's the least our family owes hers. You can't, Richard roared. That money is locked until you're 21. Unless I'm emancipated, which I'm filing for today, with Dorothy Williams as my chosen guardian. Preston pulled out more papers. He'd been busy since dawn. I may be 15, but I've got straight A's, early admission to Yale, and oh yes, evidence of my legal father's crimes. Any judge will grant it. 5 p.m. arrived with sirens. The FBI entered the country club with the inevitability of justice delayed but not denied. The lead agent walked directly to Richard Thornton, handcuffs gleaming. Richard Thornton, you're under arrest for tax evasion, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder. This is a mistake. I'll destroy all of you. As they cuffed him, Preston spoke one last time to the man who'd raised him. You taught me to take what I want. Well, I want justice. I want truth. I want my real family. Richard was dragged out screaming threats and promises, his empire collapsing with each step. Victoria, who'd arrived late in a pharmaceutical haze, saw the handcuffs and promptly fainted, her body finally overwhelmed by years of chemical escape. An ambulance took her away. Overdose. The paramedics murmured. Unlikely to be fatal, but the end of any pretense of the perfect Thornton family. 6 p.m., Christmas Eve. The country club had emptied, except for 3 figures standing in the ruins of Revelation. Sarah, Dorothy, and Preston, mother, daughter, and son, united for the first time. Your trust fund is frozen, Sarah said to Preston. You can't actually access it for Emma. I know, but the offer stands. When I turn 18, when I can access it, every penny goes to her treatment. That's 3 years away. Then we find another way, Preston said, looking between his mother and sister. We're family. We figure it out together. Dorothy pulled both of them close, her arms encompassing the children she'd raised and lost and found again. My babies, she whispered. My brave, beautiful babies. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the country club's manicured lawns in white. Inside, three souls who'd been separated by lies, class, and cruelty stood together, facing an uncertain future with something more valuable than money: each other. Preston looked at the contract Sarah had signed, then at the chaos Richard's arrest had caused. You knew, didn't you? You knew the company would be worthless once he was arrested. The contract is void. Sarah's smile was small but real. Maybe. Or maybe I just knew that sometimes you have to risk everything to gain what matters. And what matters? Preston asked. Though he was beginning to understand, Dorothy answered for them all, her voice carrying the wisdom of 30 years of suffering and survival. Family. Truth. The choice to be better than what tried to break us. As they left the country club together, Preston walking between his mother and sister, he felt the weight of his old life falling away. He was no longer Preston Thornton, heir to an empire of cruelty. He was Preston Williams, son of Dorothy, brother of Sarah, uncle to Emma. He was, finally, exactly who he was meant to be. The fluorescent lights of Mount Sinai Hospital cast everything in a harsh, unforgiving glare. 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and Dorothy Williams had come to see her granddaughter for the first time. She'd changed from her Sunday dress into comfortable clothes, her body exhausted from the emotional tsunami of the day. Sarah was in the bathroom when it happened, a sound like something essential breaking. Dorothy's hand flew to her head, her face contorting in sudden, explosive pain. The cup of tea she'd been holding shattered on the floor. Preston, who'd been reading to Emma, looked up just in time to see his mother's eyes roll back, her body crumpling like paper in flame. Mom! The word tore from his throat as he lunged forward, catching her before she hit the ground. Help someone, help! Sarah burst from the bathroom to find Preston cradling Dorothy's convulsing body, his face white with terror. Emma watched from her bed, too weak to move but alert enough to understand something terrible was happening. The nice lady, Emma whispered. Mommy, help the nice lady. Nurses flooded the room, pushing Preston aside, working with practiced efficiency. Sarah grabbed Preston, holding him back as he fought to stay close to Dorothy. Stroke, one nurse said. Major hemorrhagic stroke. Get her to OR, now. They wheeled Dorothy away, leaving Sarah and Preston standing in the sudden silence, the spilled tea spreading across the floor like an omen. Preston's hands were shaking. This is my fault. The stress of today, seeing me on my knees, the confrontation. I killed her. No. Sarah gripped his shoulders. 30 years of abuse killed her. 30 years of holding secrets, of protecting you, of surviving Richard. This isn't your fault. But Preston wasn't listening. He was 15 years old, and he'd found his mother only to lose her in the same day. 10 p.m. brought a different crisis. Dr. Patel appeared in Emma's room, his face grave. Sarah knew before he spoke. She'd learned to read the geography of bad news on doctors' faces. Emma's kidneys are failing. Her body is shutting down faster than we anticipated. We have hours. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm so sorry, but without immediate treatment. Sarah felt the floor dissolve beneath her. How many hours? 6, maybe 8. I think you should say what needs to be said. Preston watched Sarah crumble, watched her climb into Emma's bed and gather her daughter close, whispering promises she couldn't keep. He thought of his trust fund, frozen and useless, all that money sitting there while his niece died. The injustice of it burned like acid in his chest. There has to be something, he said desperately. Some treatment, some option. The Swiss treatment was our only option. Dr. Patel said gently. Without $50 million in the next few hours. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Sarah was singing to Emma now. The same lullaby Dorothy had sung to her 25 years ago. The same one Dorothy had hummed outside Preston's door during thunderstorms. The connections between them all. Invisible threads woven through years of separation were only now becoming visible as they unraveled. Midnight. Christmas. Preston sat beside Dorothy's bed in the ICU, holding her still hand, confessing to her unconscious form. The machines breathed for her, their mechanical rhythm a mockery of life. "I remember everything now," he whispered. "Every cruel thing I did. That time I was 12 and threw your dinner on the floor because it wasn't what I wanted. You were so tired. Your hands were swollen. But you got on your knees and cleaned it up. You said, 'Yes, Mr. Preston,' like I was someone important instead of just a spoiled brat." His tears fell on their joined hands. "When I was 14, I had my friends over and made you serve us in that stupid maid outfit Mom bought. You did it. You smiled and served us lemonade while we laughed at you. Brian asked if you were legal, and I said barely human. You heard. I know you heard, because I saw you crying in the pantry later." The ventilator wheezed. Dorothy's chest rose and fell with artificial life. "Last month, when you fell down the stairs because your hip gave out, I stepped over you. I literally stepped over my own mother lying hurt on the floor because I was late for lacrosse practice." Preston's voice broke completely. "How could you love me through all that? How could you stay?" A hand touched his shoulder. Sarah stood behind him, Emma in a wheelchair beside her, bundled in blankets. They'd come for midnight mass in the hospital chapel, but found themselves here instead, the three of them with Dorothy, their own small congregation of grief. "She stayed because she loved you," Sarah said simply. "The way I'd stay for Emma, the way any mother would stay for her child, no matter the cost." Emma reached out with one thin hand, touching Dorothy's arm. "She's sleeping." "Yes, baby." Sarah lied. "She's sleeping. I want to give her my Christmas present." Emma pulled out a folded drawing, stick figures holding hands, labeled in shaky writing, "Me, Mommy, Uncle Preston, and Grandma Dot." She'd added angel wings to Dorothy's figure. "For when she wakes up." Preston broke completely then, sobbing with the abandon of the child he still was, while Sarah held him and Emma watched with eyes too wise for 8 years old. The hospital chaplain found them there at 12:30, offering to hold a service in the chapel. They went, Preston pushing Emma's wheelchair, Sarah walking beside them, leaving Dorothy to her mechanical breathing. The chapel was nearly empty, just them and 2 other families holding vigil on Christmas Eve. The chaplain spoke about miracles, about hope in darkness, about God's plan being mysterious but purposeful. Preston wanted to scream that there was no purpose in this, no plan that made sense. His mother was dying. His niece was dying. Where was the miracle in that? But then Emma spoke, her voice small but clear. "Are we a family now?" Preston and Sarah looked at each other over her head. "Yes," they said together. "We're a family." 2 a.m. brought the neurologist with results that confirmed what they already knew. Dorothy was brain dead. No recovery possible. The machines were all that kept her body functioning. "She's an organ donor," the doctor said, checking the charts. "Her organs could save 8 lives. Sarah and Preston had to decide together. They were her only family. They sat in the harsh waiting room light, holding hands, trying to make an impossible choice. "She would want to help people," Preston said finally. "Even after everything. She'd want to save lives." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "She would." They signed the papers with shaking hands, knowing they were signing Dorothy's final goodbye. "There's something else," the doctor said, studying his tablet. "We ran compatibility tests for the organ recipients. Your daughter, Emma, Dorothy Williams, is a perfect bone marrow match. Extremely rare, almost impossible odds, but perfect. The donation could save her life." The room spun. Sarah grabbed the chair for support. "What?" "Dorothy's bone marrow could cure Emma's leukemia. We could do the extraction now. The transplant immediately. Emma would have a fighting chance." Preston looked at Sarah, understanding dawning. "She's going to save her, even now." Even dying. Mom's going to save Emma. The procedure. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. We can start immediately, but we need consent from Dorothy's next of kin. Do it, Preston said instantly. Do whatever you need to do. Save Emma. 4 a.m. They prepared Dorothy for the procedures. Organ extraction for 8 strangers who would live because of her. Bone marrow for the granddaughter she'd barely met. Preston kissed his mother's forehead one last time, whispering, "Thank you for loving me when I didn't deserve it." Sarah held Dorothy's hand. "Thank you for being my mother when the world said you couldn't be. Thank you for letting me go when I needed to fly. Thank you for taking me back when I needed to come home." 5:30 a.m. Emma was wheeled into surgery for the emergency transplant. Dorothy's body was prepared for its final gifts to the world. 8 families would get calls today saying a donor had been found. 1 little girl would get her grandmother's strength flowing through her veins. 6 a.m., Christmas morning. The sun rose over New York City, painting the hospital walls gold. Dorothy Williams was pronounced dead at 6:07 a.m., though her heart would beat in another chest. Her lungs would breathe for someone else. Her kidneys would filter life for 2 more souls. Preston stood at the window, watching the sunrise, feeling like a different person than he'd been 24 hours ago. He'd lost his mother on the same day he'd found her, but she'd given him something in those final hours, the chance to be better, to choose love over learned hatred. Sarah joined him, exhausted but hopeful. "Emma's in surgery. They say it looks good. Dorothy's marrow is taking. She saved her. She saved her. She saved all of us. Really." They stood together, brother and sister, watching Christmas morning arrive without the woman who'd bound them together. But in operating rooms throughout the hospital, Dorothy Williams lived on, in the organs giving life to strangers, in the marrow rebuilding Emma's blood, in the 2 broken people she'd raised who were finally, truly, finding their way home to each other. "Merry Christmas, Mom," Preston whispered to the sunrise. "Thank you for the greatest gift, the chance to become who you always knew I could be." Sarah took his hand. She knew. At the end, she knew you loved her. "How do you know?" "Because that's what mothers do. They know." The machines were silent now in Dorothy's room. But somewhere in the hospital, 8 hearts were beating with new hope, and 1 little girl was receiving the gift of life from a grandmother who'd loved her before they'd ever met. Dorothy Williams had spent 30 years in service. In death, she served still, giving everything so others could live. Christmas Day arrived with a lawyer at the hospital's entrance, briefcase in hand, searching for Sarah Mitchell and Preston Williams. He found them in the cafeteria, neither eating, both staring at coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Emma was still in surgery, Dorothy's marrow working its microscopic miracle. "I'm Jonathan Powell, Dorothy Williams' attorney," he said, setting down a worn cardboard box. "She came to me 3 weeks ago, said to deliver this on Christmas Day, no matter what. She seemed to know something was coming." Sarah and Preston exchanged glances. Even in death, Dorothy was still protecting them, still planning, still mothering. "This is her will," Powell continued, pulling out documents. "She left everything equally to you both. Her savings, $30,000 scraped together over 30 years, her personal effects, and this," and he pulled out 3 leather journals, their pages yellowed and full. "She said these were more valuable than money. She called them the truth that sets us free." Preston opened the first journal with trembling hands. Dorothy's careful script filled every page. Dates, times, incidents, evidence. 30 years of Richard Thornton's crimes meticulously documented. Not just the assault that created Preston, but 17 other women. Their names carefully protected, but their stories preserved. "She knew about all of them," Sarah whispered. "She helped them." Powell said, "Secretly, $500 here, 1,000 there. She paid for therapy, abortions, relocations, from her minimum wage. She was saving these women. The second journal was different. Photos, recordings transcribed, financial documents copied. The murder of Tony Martinez was there in horrifying detail. Richard's drunken confession recorded on a tape Dorothy had hidden for 15 years. The location of the body, the contractors who'd helped hide it, even the cement mixture used to ensure the corpse would never be detected. "This is enough to put him away forever," Preston said, his voice hollow. "There's more," Powell said. "She wanted you to see this on Christmas specifically." He pulled out a USB drive. She said to watch it together. December 26th brought Victoria Thornton to the hospital, not as a visitor, but as a patient. The overdose on Christmas Eve hadn't killed her, but withdrawal was brutal. In her delirium, with Sarah and Preston as witnesses and a police recorder running, she confessed everything. "Richard liked to hurt them," she rambled, her eyes unfocused. "The ethnic ones especially. Said they should be grateful for his attention. Dorothy wasn't the first or the last. That Martinez man found out about the girls. Richard couldn't have that." "You knew about the murder?" The detective leaned forward. "Knew I helped plan it. Told Richard to make it look like Martinez ran off with union funds. Even helped spread rumors about him having a mistress in Miami." Victoria laughed, high and manic. "We destroyed his reputation after we destroyed his body. And Dorothy's assault. Christmas party, 2008. Richard was drunk, angry about some deal, saw Dorothy working late, decided he deserved a present." Victoria's face twisted. "I watched. Made sure nobody interrupted. When she got pregnant, I told her we'd destroy her, deport her whole family. She kept quiet like a good little servant." Preston had to leave the room, but Sarah stayed, recording everything on her phone. Every confession, every cruel detail, every proof that Dorothy had survived hell to protect her son. December 27th found Preston in the Thornton mansion, now empty with Richard in custody and Victoria hospitalized. He'd come for his belongings but found himself drawn to the laundry room, to the tiny space behind it where Dorothy had lived. The room was smaller than his closet, a single bed, neatly made, a small dresser with 3 outfits, all identical black uniforms. But the walls took his breath away. Every inch was covered with him and Sarah. Photos taken from distances, newspaper clippings, report cards somehow copied, his first lacrosse trophy photographed from the local paper, Sarah's wedding announcement, Emma's birth notice, a ticket stub from his middle school play. Dorothy had been there, somewhere in the audience, watching her son perform. Under the bed, he found a box of recordings, cassette tapes labeled with dates. He found a player and pressed play on one marked Preston's First Words. Dorothy's younger voice filled the room, whispering, "He said mama today. Not to me, of course. To Victoria. But I was there, hiding in the hallway, and I heard my baby say his first word." Another tape. "Preston won the science fair. He'll never know I stayed up all night to make sure his display board was perfect after he threw it against the wall in frustration. He's so smart, so capable. I'm so proud." The most recent, dated a week ago. "I feel something coming. Death. Maybe. Or just change. If Preston ever hears this, my son, I forgive you for everything. You were never cruel. You were just lost. Find yourself. Find Sarah. Be the family I always dreamed you'd be." December 28th brought a flood. The news of Dorothy's death, combined with Richard's arrest and the evidence she'd preserved, opened floodgates 30 years in the making. Women came forward, 17 that Dorothy had documented, but more, so many more. They gathered at the hospital. These women Richard had hurt, forming an unlikely sisterhood. A prosecutor, a cleaning lady, a teenage girl from just last year. They shared their stories with Preston and Sarah, wanting them to know Dorothy hadn't just documented their pain, she'd been their guardian angel. "She paid for my abortion," one woman said. "Left the cash in an envelope at my door. I never knew it was her until now." "She got me a lawyer," another added. "When Richard threatened to have me deported. Suddenly I had representation. Pro bono," they said. "But Dorothy paid. I know she did. Then, Preston listened to every story, carrying the weight of his father's sins and his mother's grace. These women didn't blame him. Dorothy had made sure of that, telling each one that Preston was innocent, was himself a victim. December 31st, New Year's Eve. Preston and Sarah sat in Sarah's apartment, Emma sleeping peacefully in the next room, her body accepting Dorothy's marrow like a gift it had always been meant to receive. They finally watched Dorothy's video. She appeared on screen, dressed in her Sunday best, sitting in what looked like Powell's office. The timestamp showed December 15th, just a week before everything unraveled. "My beloved children," she began, looking directly at the camera. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone, and the truth is finally free. Preston, my beautiful boy, you are not your father's sins. Every harsh word you spoke, I heard the pain beneath it. Every cruel act, I saw the wounded child performing it. I stayed not because I'm weak, but because I'm your mother. And a mother's love doesn't end, even when it's not returned." Preston was crying, Sarah holding his hand. "You were worth every moment of pain, every year of silence. Watching you grow, even from shadows, was my greatest privilege. You have my eyes, my stubborn chin, my quick temper. But you also have something Richard never had, the capacity to choose love. Choose it now. Choose it every day." Dorothy paused, seeming to gather strength. "Sarah, my first daughter, you saved me as much as I saved you. That angry, brilliant 5-year-old who wouldn't speak for 3 months, then called me Mama on Christmas morning. You gave me purpose when I had none. Your leaving didn't break my heart. It filled it with pride. You flew exactly as high as I knew you would. Take care of each other, your family, not by blood, but by choice, by struggle, by survival. Preston, let Sarah teach you how to rise from nothing. Sarah, let Preston teach you that redemption is possible for anyone. I'm leaving you the truth not as a weapon, but as a key. Use it to free yourselves from the past. Use it to build something better. Use it to ensure no woman suffers in silence again." Dorothy smiled then, peaceful and sure. "I love you both beyond words, beyond time, beyond death itself. In Emma's healing blood, in Preston's growing conscience, in Sarah's fierce protection, I live on. That's all any mother wants. Really, to live on in the love between her children." The video ended. Outside, fireworks began, New York City celebrating the new year. But in the apartment, 2 siblings sat in silence, carrying the weight and wonder of Dorothy Williams's final gift, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. "She knew," Preston said finally. "She knew she was dying. She prepared everything. She was saving us one last time," Sarah agreed. "Even from beyond." As midnight struck, they made their resolutions. Preston would testify. Sarah would rebuild. Emma would survive. And Dorothy Williams' name would be remembered not as a servant, but as a survivor, a protector, a mother who changed the world through the simple, revolutionary act of documenting the truth. 6 months later, the New York State Supreme Court was packed beyond capacity. Preston Williams, he'd legally changed his name the day he turned 16, sat in the witness box, facing the man who'd raised him. Richard Thornton, shackled and diminished, watched his son destroy him with truth. "He taught me to hate," Preston testified, his voice steady. "He showed me how to dehumanize anyone who wasn't white, wealthy, male. But my mother, Dorothy Williams, taught me something else, even when I couldn't hear it. She taught me that love survives hatred, that truth outlasts lies, that redemption is possible for anyone willing to do the work." Richard got life without parole. Victoria, broken by withdrawal and facing her own charges, received 10 years but would serve 3. Thornton Industries was liquidated, its assets distributed among Richard's victims. Justice, Dorothy had always said, was a dish best served documented. Emma's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. Dorothy's marrow had taken root like seeds in fertile soil, rebuilding her immune system cell by cell. By April, she was walking. By May, running. By June, she was a normal 8-year-old, carrying her grandmother's strength in her veins. She called Preston Uncle Pressy now, and he'd never corrected her. Every Tuesday, he picked her up from school in his used Honda. He'd sold the BMW, donated the money, and they'd get ice cream while Sarah worked. He was learning to be family in small, essential ways. Preston had started at Green Wave from the bottom. Literally. Maintenance crew, morning shift. Learning what it meant to work for money rather than have it given. His co-workers didn't know his history at first, but when they found out, they taught him more about dignity and labor than Exeter ever had about Latin. The Dorothy Williams Foundation launched on what would have been her 66th birthday. It provided legal services for domestic workers, assault survivors, and immigrants facing exploitation. Preston spoke at the opening, his voice breaking only once. My mother cleaned houses for 30 years while holding a PhD. She was assaulted by her employer and forced to watch him raise her biological son. She documented every crime, saved every victim she could reach, and died giving life to 8 strangers and her granddaughter. This foundation ensures no one else suffers in silence. The healing was slow, sometimes brutal. Preston's therapy sessions left him raw, excavating years of programmed cruelty. He volunteered at Mount Sinai's children's ward, reading to kids like Emma, learning gentleness he'd never been taught. When one child asked if he'd really been mean to his mom, he answered honestly, "Yes, it's my greatest shame and my most important teacher." 1 year after Dorothy's death, Christmas morning, 3 figures stood at a grave marked Dorothy Williams, mother, fighter, hero. Fresh snow covered the ground, but the headstone was clear, surrounded by flowers from people she'd saved. Preston pulled out an envelope, worn from his pocket. I found one more letter. It's addressed to both of us. Sarah took it with trembling hands, reading aloud. My children, if you're reading this together, then everything I hoped for has come true. You've found each other. You've chosen family. The wine that humiliated you, Sarah, brought you home. The truth that destroyed your world, Preston, set you free. Sometimes God works through pain to deliver grace. Love each other. Protect each other. Remember me not with sadness, but with determination to be better. All my love. Always. Mom. Emma placed a drawing on the headstone. The same stick figures, but now Dorothy had real wings, watching over them from above. Grandma Dot's watching us. Right? Emma asked. Preston looked at Sarah, then at his niece. This family forged from truth and loss and love. Yeah, kiddo. She never stopped. Dorothy Williams spent 30 years cleaning the floors others walked on, documenting crimes while enduring abuse, loving children who couldn't love her back. She died giving life to 8 strangers and saving the granddaughter she barely knew. Her story reminds us that dignity isn't determined by the work we do, but by how we choose to love in the face of hatred. Sarah's humiliation in work clothes exposed society's ugly truth. We judge worth by appearance, not character. Preston's transformation from cruel heir to humble brother proves that even the most poisoned hearts can choose redemption. Emma's survival through Dorothy's marrow shows how sacrifice creates miracles. True family isn't about blood or class or the clothes we wear. It's about showing up, staying quiet when necessary, speaking truth when it matters, and loving especially when it costs everything. Dorothy knew every cruel word Preston spoke came from pain, not truth. She stayed not from weakness, but from strength that most of us can't fathom. The wine that dripped from Sarah's hair washed away 25 years of separation, revealing what matters: the people who love us despite our failures, who document our crimes and forgive them anyway. Have you ever been humiliated for your appearance or job, like Sarah was for wearing work clothes to that gala? What did it teach you about how society really values people?